Hello, welcome everybody to the integrated track. It gives me great pleasure to be able to introduce Drew Ray, who is an application architect at Wake Forest University. Wake Forest has been a valued customer of SnapLogic for a number of years now. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Drew, and he's going to walk us through how Wake Forest has embarked on their modernization process. Over to you, Drew.
Over the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to introduce you to how Wake Forest has done its what I consider to be our latest digital transformation. I've been with the university for 26 years, and I consider this my third major digital transformation. And this one is where we have transformed we've transformed our infrastructure and a lot of our software, where we were running everything all in-house, and now we've transitioned so that virtually everything has been moved to the cloud. And so I'll be going over that at a very high level. It would take too long to do everything that we've done. I want to highlight some of the drivers and the goals that were set forth by our management, our leadership, and also where we determined as we were transitioning to the cloud, we had some legacy software where we really needed to modernize and upgrade it. And the last part of the presentation will go into the tool selection of selecting SnapLogic as the vendor that we chose to partner with, and some of the outcomes that came from that. So the first thing I want to do is just go a little bit over the university, some information about the university. We started out in Wake Forest, North Carolina in 1834, but in the 1950s, I think it was 1954, we relocated to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Our current enrollment is about 8,800 total, with about 5,500 of those being the undergraduate population. We're an NCAA Division I school in the ACC conference. We've just had a really wonderful football season with a 10-2 record. We did just this past weekend lose the ACC tournament to Pitt, and congratulations to Pitt on that. We have one more game coming up on New Year's Eve, and that'll be in the Gator Bowl in Florida. We operate under a central information systems of about a staff of a total of about 90 people, and those 90 people include our application development area, which includes QA and development. We also have a help desk. Our infrastructure team and our networking team are all part of that. And I want to direct you to some of the pictures I have on this first slide. This is really our end game to what this presentation is all about. This is us breaking down our data center in-house because we don't need it anymore because we've transitioned to the cloud. And so we are working on repurposing that space and figuring out what else to do, because now all of that infrastructure is now in the cloud. So I want to take you back to 2016, which is really about the time that we started this process of transforming from all in-house over into the cloud. In 2016, our infrastructure was completely in-house with pretty much every system replicated offsite in order to handle disaster recovery. This caused a lot of server maintenance, OS upgrades, and then for the databases, a lot of patching, and that was for the servers. And then we also have, as our major enterprise software, we use a product called Banner from Elucian, and that was housing our registration, our accounts receivable, financial aid, payroll, finance, and our HR system. And that required a maintenance of about every quarter. We would have to go in and do a lot of maintenance and upgrades to that software. Other applications we dealt with were our DegreeWorks, which is our degree auditing system, our learning management system, which was Sakai. And of course, we have to deal with all of the questions coming in from all over the university, faculty, staff, students, and we used the Remedy ticketing system for that. In 2016, we were just starting to create and develop the enterprise data warehouse for our reporting. And so that was also something that we really were looking at in terms of transitioning to a cloud structure at the time. But it was just in for Wake Forest, it was just in its infancy at that point. Some of the drivers in 2015, we got a new CIO, and he came in. He really looked over all of the systems that we were running. But he did come in, and about halfway through 2015 is when he introduced us to his vision that he wanted us to become a cloud first university. And when we did that, we really had to we looked over all of our systems, and we had two phases of it. The first phase was if we could find a SaaS solution, a software as a service solution. If that was possible and affordable, we would go with that. And then if we couldn't do that, what we were going to do is we were still going to keep that. We would still keep those applications, but we would still move all of the infrastructure to the cloud and use an IaaS service for all of the equipment and the servers. One of the things that I wanted you to get out of the previous slide was how much maintenance we were doing. We were doing so much maintenance, and we were starting to get out of balance with what the purpose of information systems was. We were doing all of the maintenance and not helping the university achieve its academic mission. Okay, so we needed to. One of the driving forces of this cloud initiative was to get us out from under all of the maintenance and allow us to focus more on what the university needed. And by doing that, we took advantage of the fact that SaaS is pretty much, once you go into SaaS, it runs itself. And where you have IaaS, there's a lot of maintenance that occurs in the cloud by the cloud provider. Also, we had, in addition to the CIO, we had some new leadership coming in the departments who had come in and saw and were wanting new features in some of their software. And one of those areas was our finance and payroll area. And they really wanted to. We looked over 3 different SaaS solutions, and when they came to it, they said they looked over it and decided that Workday was the best. Was the one that offered the desired features that they were looking for. So we went with Workday and put our finance and our payroll and we transformed our HR system into an HCM system that is provided by Workday. Okay, now one of the problem that we introduced with this was that we were now going to separate our data, and it was really important. So we had our faculty and our staff data was going to be moving to Workday, while our student data was still staying in our banner system in-house on-premise. Well, not on-premise. We did move banner to the IaaS solution. So this was going to cause a division in the data that was being transferred in almost all of our interfaces. And so we recognized that this was going to be a major rewrite to do this. And we were also going to be needing different tool sets. In the old system, everything was being pulled out of an Oracle database. It was kind of a one-stop shop to get the data. Now we were going to need to get some out of the cloud using REST services and the Workday delivered APIs, while still getting the student data using our Oracle systems. And then we would have to merge that and unify that data and format it so that it goes out to the vendors nice and clean. And that's when we realized, okay, we're going to need a new tool. And we looked over several of the options out in the marketplace, and we chose SnapLogic. And the next couple slides are going to show you kind of the reasons why we decided to go with SnapLogic. Some of the features that we really liked about it was how visually appealing it was. That it was very easy so they had these, visually they have these snaps, and they have them organized into snap packs. And that also, when you did go into a snap, it gave you a dialog box. And that was kind of important because we were not really we were an Oracle shop. We didn't know a lot about REST services. We didn't know anything about the Workday APIs yet. And when you go in and you look at a Snap, it gives you this dialog box, and it kind of gives you a guidance of what you're going to need in order to make the snaps work. Okay. And also, once you've bunched them all together into a pipeline, it's really easy to kind of visually go through it and say, here's what's happening in this pipeline. So it was really important. We knew that Workday used REST services and SOAP calls, and they also and those things came as part of the delivered Snap packs from SnapLogic. But we really couldn't have chose SnapLogic at all if they didn't have the premium Snap packs that we bought, which was the Oracle and the Oracle Snap pack and the Workday Snap pack, because those were where our information really was. So this is an example of one of the pipelines. This is a very typical example of one of the pipelines. This is our emergency. This feeds our emergency response system. Our emergency response system is so that we can inform our faculty staff that when we have closings due to snow or due to weather, and thankfully we haven't had an issue yet like this, but if we did have an active shooter on campus, the emergency response system would be sending out text messages about that. So what you can see in this slide is that you do have two different flows of data. Here you have the worker flow, and then you have the student flow. Okay, and then we're mapping the data, and then we're, as I was saying in the previous slide, we're unifying the data into one format. Some of it coming from Workday, some of it coming from Oracle. We're transforming it into a CSV format. Then we're writing to the S3 bucket. That's creating a backup. And of course, we're now a cloud solution, so our backups are going into an S3 bucket in AWS. And then this works as an if-then statement. So we're SFTPing. We're going to SFTP the data off to the vendor for our emergency response system. And so if we're in a testing mode, it's going to go to one place versus our production mode. And so this kind of acts as an if-then statement, and then we send the data off to the vendor. But I want to kind of focus on these first two a little bit more, in that I want you to understand that these were reusable, and it was really and I want to focus on the worker data. The worker data is the faculty and the staff. And if I want, and this is basically, these are actually pipelines in and of themselves that select different populations from Workday. And in this case, it's pretty much everybody. It's everybody, since everybody needs to be in the emergency response system. But I have different ones behind the scenes that would allow me to get just my full-time faculty, or just my adjunct faculty, or a combination of both, or a combination of different ones. And it's reusable. And that was really important in terms of being able to put together all of these different integrations in a timely fashion. So the outcomes are, at this point, with SnapLogic, we've been able to develop an awful lot of integrations. We've got our integrations to our advancement system. We have 11 of them. Our HCM system is exporting to 9 different vendors for our various benefits. Our campus life system feeds a whole lot of different systems around campus, and also gets information from other systems around campus. So we have 17 integrations there. With financial aid, we have 6 integrations, and our finance department has they have a developer of their own, and they've put together 26 integrations. And even though we did not move our student data from Banner to some other place yet, we decided, okay, if we are going to touch a current integration, we're going to transform it so that it uses SnapLogic. And I think that's sort of a strategic thing going forward. So we've actually got 24 student integrations, even though it's still running in Banner. So these are either new ones, or where we had an old integration and we needed to make an adjustment to it. And if we made an adjustment to it, we transformed it and made it a SnapLogic pipeline. We also have 13 internal IS feeds. And that's really important too, to keep the sync, to keep the data in sync between Workday and Banner. And an example of that is, of course, our faculty are in their primary location. Their primary location is Workday, but we have to get them over to Banner so that we can assign them the courses that they're going to be teaching. Okay, because that's part of the registration system, and the registration system still resides in Banner. Likewise, the students are in Banner, but we employ many students on campus, and so we have to port them back over into Workday so that we can pay them. So those are just two examples of the reasons why we have the internal feeds back and forth between Workday, Banner, and then some other internal IS systems. I also touched on the fact that the data warehouse was sort of in its infancy at the time that we started this process of transforming into the cloud. And so they've been very busy. They pretty much got a jump start on working with SnapLogic. And so they wrote 171 feeds from Workday, 218 feeds from StarRes, which is our residence life and housing system, which is also in the cloud. It is also a cloud SaaS service. So they were doing an awful lot of REST calls there. Also, as everybody knows, in 2020 the pandemic started, and as most universities had to do, we had to bring up an entire COVID dashboard. And so we have now 12 feeds from our data warehouse into our COVID dashboard, and that is what's feeding that system. And so today's structure at Wake Forest looks a lot different than it did in 2016. As I indicated, as the presentation has mostly indicated, Workday was a primary focus, and so that is housing our finances, our payroll, and our HCM system. Blackbaud is our advancement system, and it's where they solicit members of the university for contributions to our endowment and things like that. Another thing that I said in the beginning of the presentation was that we would look at what some of our legacy systems were and decide where we needed to upgrade them. We needed to change the software out completely, and we did that with our LMS system. We were on Sakai, and as we transitioned to the cloud, we decided to go with Canvas's SaaS service. And then also with our ticketing system was very outdated. It was, and so we transitioned that into the cloud, and we chose another vendor called Freshservice for doing our ticketing system. And we also did Slate as our admissions system. So where before in the in-house system, again, we just modernized it, made it a lot more accessible for students, for potential students to apply to Wake Forest. And so we have a lot of feeds that go from Slate over into Banner. And again, so when there either wasn't available a good SaaS solution, then we went to IaaS and still got the infrastructure into the cloud so that we can do less maintenance on it. And we did that with a lot of products. These are just a few of the ones that I worked on. With Ellucian, we took Banner and DegreeWorks over and put that into an IaaS structure. So I'm still doing the upgrades on the pieces of Banner that are still there, but I don't have to worry about upgrading all the servers. That stuff is kind of handled by the cloud service, the AWS cloud service. Another one that this sort of is in transition. The one that I've got here, it's called PowerFades. We did transition our financial aid from Banner into PowerFades with the intent to go to SaaS eventually. PowerFades does not offer a SaaS solution today, but they are working on offering a SaaS solution. So we decided to transition into Power Fades first, and then when they start offering their SaaS solution, we're just going to take that data and move it up into their SaaS service, and then we won't have to worry about doing any of the upgrades. So overall, though, we've transitioned 149. We've transitioned into 149 servers. It's not a 1-for-1 exactly, so I can't tell you what the number was before. And so Lucian also started a new self-service, a bunch of new self-service modules, and we decided to spin them up into the AWS containers so that we can take advantage of their ability to scale. Because with self-service, we really need to get that so that we can have a lot of servers servicing our students for an activity like our registration. And one of the other things that I told you was our COVID database. It was a brand new database, and so we decided to create that directly into the AWS delivered relational database system. And so this is one of the 11 is our COVID dashboard, and then and we've spun up 10 other relational databases right in the AWS system. And so now, so I'm going to hand it back over to Mark to go over some of the features of the summit.
Okay, thanks, Drew. So I just want to make you guys aware of a few things here. So for those of you who are not currently SnapLogic customers, we do offer a free trial for 30 days. So that's a fully featured trial that you can go in and take it for a test drive. We also offer training. So for those of you who want to become SnapLogic certified, so we have some complimentary training that we are offered, and you'll see there's various different levels of training and certification that you can embark upon. We also want to encourage you to use the community. So this is a place where all of our members who are SnapLogic, they'll go and ask technical questions. There's things that they'll ask about feature requests. We publish new product features that we're looking for, and we'll do polls and stuff. So it's a great place to get engaged. So we'd really like to encourage everyone to make use of that valuable resource. And then, of course, like if you have some questions if you're getting started and you have some questions around how you might want to actually build out and what some of the best practices are. So we have a document that is called the SnapLogic Blueprint that kind of walks you through that in quite a bit level of detail. So I want to make sure that you're aware of those resources that you have at your disposal. So with that, shall we go maybe to the next slides and we can take some questions? So Drew, one of the first questions I see here is do you have any existing on-premise equipment left, or would you say that you completed your cloud journey?
We have a few that we decided that we're going to phase out. We're not going to. The software is for example, we had a very old identity management system. And we haven't decided on a new identity management system yet, but we're not planning on transitioning that one to the cloud. We are going to come up with a new solution. We haven't really decided on what solution that is yet. So that's going to be one where we're going to let that stay on-prem until we come up with a new solution. And that's probably what we're dealing with for the most part with what's left on-prem is things that we feel like they're nearing their end of life.
Got it. So another question here is, what do you use for data warehouses? Oh, there we go. What do you use for a data warehouse, and how does SnapLogic connect to that feed? If just generally speaking, do we use database connectors, or do you use like more specific things like something like a Snowflake connector?
So we're utilizing mostly the it is Oracle based. Behind the scenes, it is an Oracle based data warehouse. Mm-hmm. we are, we're feeding the data in there just based on whatever the system is that's being used. In a lot of cases, it's REST calls, and when it's coming from Banner, it's it's PL SQL packages in Oracle. In terms of getting the data out of the data warehouse, we are using Power BI, and we're using Power BI for analytics, and we're using Cognos for our reporting.
Okay, very good. When you look to bring on new applications, is your default now just SaaS? Is that what you first evaluate, and only in the event that it's not available via SaaS, then you would consider an infrastructure as a service?
I'm going to have to go with the answer is yes at this point on that. As a matter of fact, we are almost to the point where we're saying we won't even entertain you unless you've got a plan to get to SaaS. Okay, you may not, if you're not on SaaS right now, we'll still talk to you, but you better have a plan to have a fully SaaS service.
Very good. There's another qualifying question here I see. What do you mean when you say you're currently in AWS? Like S3 for storage, or are you saying that you're using Redshift?
Okay, so we are. I'm not sure that I'm qualified to answer that question. I will. We are definitely using S3 buckets for data storage. Okay, it's where we put all of our backups and everything. And we are in a lot of cases we've spun up Linux boxes, but we're trying to use the AWS delivered operating system, the AWS delivered version of Linux. So it's mostly Linux boxes up there. Some of them are running just straight up Red Hat and in the cases of Ellucian, it's only certified under Red Hat. But we have a lot of applications where we've spun it up and used the AWS version of Linux to do that. So yeah, our staff is very Linux oriented. So that's what we've done.
So what are you going to do with all your free space?
So that particular room, the room where we have that data center, is very has a lot of extra bells and whistles to it. It's got an elevated floor. It's got a fire suppression system. It's so I'm not sure what's going to happen to it, but we're going to have to we're really going to have to give it some thought.
Very good, very good. Well, I know we're just about out of time. I certainly want to thank you for joining our summit and presenting and sharing your story on how you have modernized at Wake Forest. If there's no other questions, then I think we'll call it a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for attending.